financial growth, security, and success for tomorrow. It's time for the Business Edge on V1370. Here's your host from HFS Associates, Angie Huffman.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Business Edge. This week, we're going to be talking about managing your cash flow. And for a lot of small business owners, this is the biggest challenge that they have in running their businesses is managing the cash flow. So that's what we're going to talk about this week. I'm your host, Angie Huffman of HFS Associates, an accounting and business advisory services firm. You can find out more about me at www.hfs-associates.com. You can also call me at 410-256-9700, and I'll be able to help you with any of your accounting or business management needs. Each week on the Business Edge, we discuss business and career issues important to business owners and their employees. So as I said at the top of the show, managing cash flow is usually the most challenging area for many small business owners. According to the Small Business Administration, the financial management piece of a small business is one of the greatest reasons, number one reasons, why small businesses fail. And I have a theory as to why that happens. Let me tell you about Dan. Dan is a composite of many of the small business owners I work with. And, of course, anybody I'll talk about today, their names have been changed to protect the innocent, okay? But anyhow, Dan was frustrated with working for companies, not being able to work the way he wanted to, when he wanted to, having to do work his boss wanted him to do rather than doing the more fulfilling kinds of projects he likes to do. So he decides to quit his job and start his own business. Well, great. I mean, thousands upon thousands of individuals do that every day. They leave the security of a job and then go on to start their own business. So Dan decides to start a landscaping business. Dan is great at what he does. He has a great eye for landscaping design, and he loves to work outside. Dan is also a very hard worker. So 2 years after starting his business, Dan comes to me frustrated with how things are going on in his business financially. He has plenty of work. He's very busy during the times of year when landscapers are typically busy. But it feels like he's falling deeper and deeper into debt, more and more behind financially. He's always feeling like he's got to borrow from Peter to pay Paul. And during the natural slow months of the landscaping business, he must borrow even more money wherever he can just to be able to eat and pay the mortgage on his house. So this creates a vicious cycle where during the slow months he's having to borrow money to get by, and then during the busier months when he actually may have some cash flow, he's putting so much money toward paying off that debt that he then has to scramble desperately trying to scrounge up enough money just to pay his workers so that they won't walk out on all these jobs he has going. So Dan is in this never-ending cash flow crunch. He's so frustrated with it all. He is ready to declare bankruptcy. And at least that's what he told me, and go back to working for someone else. But for anyone who has ever had their own business, most business owners will say to go back to working for someone else. Some would even say I'd rather die. But yet Dan can't continue to work under this kind of financial stress where he's just feeling like he's digging his hole deeper and deeper. Dan is not alone. He is the typical creative entrepreneur. And I say creative because what he loves best about his business is the design side of landscaping. And I say entrepreneur because he was willing to take the risk of starting his own business. And those are usually the two key components for an entrepreneur. They have something they really love to do. It's typically a creative outlet. And then they have the guts to go ahead out and do it, which, many people don't have that willingness to go out and take that risk. However, this can also be a challenge for the entrepreneur. The creative entrepreneur is usually very good at what they do. They are excellent web designers, IT people, graphic designers, seamstresses, landscapers, you name it. They're usually very, very good at what they're doing, at the work of their business. However, they typically do not have the skill set for managing the financial aspects of a business. Now, that's not a problem. That's not a critique. That is not a criticism of the small business owner. It's just typically the way it works out. They're really good at what they do, but they haven't had the skills, the training to manage the financial piece of the business. Okay. However, as Dan did, and anyone can, you can now, once you recognize that may be a weak point in your business, you can get the skills and then, more importantly, get the support to help you manage the cash flow piece of your business. And you would need a professional like myself, typically a CPA, who has experience in helping business owners put together a financial wellness plan for their businesses. And I like to call it a cash flow plan. And it helps you manage your cash flow. So you start out with the plan. Now, I keep talking about cash flow. What do I mean by cash flow? What is the definition of cash flow? It's very simply the cash that comes into your pocket from wherever it comes from, and then the cash where it goes when it comes out of your pocket, wherever it goes to. So if you are an employed individual, that's the money that you get from your employer. They pay you in your net paycheck. That is cash inflow into your personal checking account. Then all the cash outflow pieces are for paying your mortgage, paying for groceries, paying the car payments, any other debts that you have, any other expenses you have. Well, the same thing happens in a business. You have cash inflow, which is typically, hopefully, from the revenues that you are generating in your business. These would be, you do the work of the business and customers pay you. Other forms of cash flow would be your own personal savings that you've put into the business, loans that you've borrowed for the business. Okay. Investors may invest in your business. So those are all ways that you can get cash in the business. And then cash outflow is then when you start paying for employees, paying the debt, paying for equipment, paying for all the supplies that you need to do your business, paying for advertising. So when I talk about cash flow, I'm talking about just that movement of money into and out of your business. Now, why is that important in managing that cash flow? To avoid exactly the issue that Dan was running into, that he feels like a gerbil on one of those little wheels that you put in a gerbil's cage for them to get exercise, where he's just always chasing his tail, trying to catch up with paying his employees, paying his debt, paying his own personal expenses, and so forth. And because he did not plan ahead of time for how much cash he was going to need to run this business, he ends up in this never-ending spiraling down cycle. That is not the kind of cash flow management that we want. We want a cash flow management cycle that actually rises the tide for the entire business from a financial standpoint. So how do we do that? How do we manage that cash flow? Well, the first thing that needs to happen is you need to create a plan. Plan needs to be created. The first most common mistake I see a lot of small business owners make is that contributes to poor cash flow business is that they don't have a business plan that includes a well thought out financial plan. Now, don't get me wrong, they make plans. Let me tell you about Sandy, a seamstress I worked with. She made all kinds of plans for her business. But most of these plans were centered around the work in her business, not on her business or for her business. Now, what I mean by that is Sandy planned how she would do the work of sewing and teaching sewing lessons. That was another piece of her business. She planned how much space she would need for her classes and the equipment she would need for giving those classes. She planned the curriculum for those classes. She planned how she would complete sewing projects she needed to deliver to customers. She planned her day minute by minute. But what Sandy didn't plan was how much money she would need to invest in her business. She knew all the things she needed to accumulate for her business, but she didn't plan where the revenues were going to come from for her business, what she was going to charge, or what did she need to charge for the services she was offering. She didn't plan how much total money she would need to invest in all the sewing machines, the ironing boards, irons. She also didn't plan for what if she didn't have any students right away? What if she didn't have any work? She didn't plan how to market her business. She didn't plan how much it would cost to market her business. And so because Sandy didn't plan the money part of her business, she soon ran into trouble. She ran into cash flow management trouble because she had used up all her cash, used up all her savings, and then she still wasn't getting the business that she needed to help grow her business. So that is the challenge I see common with business owners over and over again. Yeah, they make all kinds of plans in their business, but they don't make and of course, I'm biased, everyone. I am a CPA. I live and breathe numbers, but they don't make the plans for how to manage the financial aspects of their business. When we come back from our break, we will talk about how do you create those plans, what things you need to consider in making those plans. This is Angie Huffman of The Business Edge.